Good evening, and you're all very welcome to the Bealtaine Living Earth Festival 2021. Now, we might just take our time starting as people log on and enter the meeting. So my name is Owen Gill, and I'm with CalMast, the STEM Outreach Centre at Waterford Institute of Technology. And with the CalMast team, I'm involved in bringing this festival to you. Now, the festival was founded in 2005, so this is, I think, our 17th year, and we're delighted to be with you, even though we're not in person. This is a festival that is meant to be about people meeting together and getting out and about into into our nature and our natural places. So it's really about people. It's about people coming together and sharing a wonder for nature, but also to learn about our biodiversity and our environment. Now, many people of my age will remember that the emphasis used to be on extinction and endangered species, and particularly species that might have a kind of maybe a cuddly factor, like the giant panda or the tiger, although I wouldn't recommend cuddling them up in person. But the emphasis was on losing particular species, the whale, the panda, the tiger. There was kind of iconic species. But over the years, the emphasis has completely changed. And now we're talking about biodiversity. That means everything. So it's not just enough to look at one species on its own. We don't really know how all the species interact, and we don't know what the impact of losing one species will be. So we're very much have a holistic view now of nature and our natural environment, and it goes beyond living things to things like our geology and our landscapes and we know now, of course, our atmosphere. And there's a lot of pressures coming on. Sorry. Yeah. So there's a lot of pressures coming on biodiversity, on for climate change and other environmental pressures. And so this festival was founded to celebrate our living earth and to promote good environmental stewardship, but also to learn about biodiversity, and particularly about our natural heritage in the southeast of Ireland. Now, the festival is spreading, and through the wonders of Zoom, we're able to reach people all around the world, and you're all welcome here, those from the southeast and those who will be future visitors to the southeast. So today, we're going to have a visit to the Lafcadio Hearn Gardens in Tramore. But first, before that, I'd like to look back and look at what the festival normally looks like in normal pre-COVID times. And last year we went online, and we were really learning the ropes. I can't say we're experts at the moment, but we're well used now to broadcasting. But last year, we certainly wouldn't have thought that we'd be back here online again this year. We thought we'd be out and about. And just to tease you with what we could be doing, I'm going to just show what it was like 2 years ago. So here are some of the scenes from our Living Earth Festival in 2019, the last time we were all able to meet up together and get outdoors, celebrating our wonderful natural heritage in the southeast. Young people are very important for us because we need to educate them about biodiversity and our heritage, because they are going to be the guardians, and they are already shaping up to be more responsible than their forebears. So we've lots of activities for young people this week. We're delighted to say we've over 3,000 young people are going to be attending events online. But of course, we hope soon to be getting back to in person, because it's so much more rewarding and enriching for all. So, of course, we celebrate the wonderful variety of landscapes that we have in the southeast, our wonderful coastline, our mountains, the parkland and woodland, and indeed our cities. But more important every year is the idea of action, of making a change, both individually and collectively. And that has become a much more important part of the festival over the years as biodiversity and the environment is in crisis. We will be meeting Eric Dempsey again during the week, and he'll be talking about garden birds. And we will be meeting the people of JFK Arboretum too. We'll be visiting there during the week. And we long, of course, to get out ourselves. Of course, everyone can always get out themselves and walk about. We think that it's really important that young people learn about biodiversity from other regions of the world, and we have events that will do that. And we'll also be having several hundred young people join this seal rescue in Wexford for events, and that's really important for taking care of our oceans. We normally have lots of hands-on activities, and unfortunately, these have to move online again this year. Today, we'll be visiting the Japanese garden, so here's a little taster. And there's Keith there, he's getting ready to talk to you. And we hope to be back at places like Curramore and Mount Congreve and other wonderful places next year for our festival. May the 20th is a very important day. It's the International Bee Day, where we look after our pollinators, and the 18th is the Fascination of Plants Day, and we'll be celebrating both of those. But of course, the next Saturday is the important one. It's International Day for Biological Diversity, and we'll be celebrating that as well. So we look forward to seeing you out with us again in time, but until then, we have to make do with meeting through the technological miracles of Zoom. So there is a taste of what's available for people around the southeast of Ireland, and of course, wherever you are, there's going to be wonderful local places to visit. One of the things that was striking about our lockdowns was how people noticed nature. And I suppose maybe people were walking on the same routes every day, and they noticed the changes in nature, and we became more in touch with the seasons. And I suppose also we started to see what we were losing. We weren't able to visit places that we like and we normally would. So we became, I suppose, very aware of the importance of nature, and I suppose aware also of the impact nature has on our own wellness. And these are issues that will come up again and again during the festival. Now, this year, last year, the format of our daily shows is that we have an introduction and we talk about things that have happened. We have our visit, which will be a video which takes place of our normal visit, and then we have a discussion afterwards, and then we have a information about activities and resources and competitions at the end to wrap up. One of the things we've changed now is that we're coming to you through Zoom, and that means people can enter into the discussion at the end. Last year people had to tweet or email us or Facebook, or and there wasn't that immediate engagement, because we're really trying to recreate the idea of a group of people in the same place at the same time, looking at the same thing, and this move onto Zoom hopefully will help that. Now, You did get a sneak preview there of Keith Guinan and the Lafcadio Hearn Gardens, and we're going to now go and look at and visit the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese Gardens in Tramore.
It's coming into summertime, and that means that we are once again celebrating Bealtaine Living Earth Festival. Since opening in 2015, the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese Gardens has embraced its responsibilities as an open area for life to thrive in Tramore. Prior to opening, the woodlands underwent a deep cleaning. In previous years, litter and neglect of the area was hostile towards local life. Through Tramore Eco Group, numerous bird boxes and bat boxes were installed to encourage life to thrive in the woodlands. After dark bat walks have taken place in the gardens, allowing the people of the community to catch a glimpse of these elusive creatures for themselves. Pollinating insects are also thriving within our walls, attracted particularly to the Victorian and American sections of the gardens. In June and July, you can see countless bees and butterflies in these areas. It's incredible to think that these tiny creatures form such an integral part of our ecosystem. But the reality is that our food supply would have much less variety if we didn't have their help. As these creatures help the plants to grow, we can help them to thrive. First, we must recognize that we are part of a larger world which extends beyond the boundaries of the gardens. By learning about our local ecosystem, we are learning about our place in the world. Biodiversity is a global issue, and each local effort can contribute to a greater cause. One small action to help support biodiversity is the propagation of local seeds. This has been carried out in the community by members of Tramore Eco Group. Simple acts such as allowing dandelions to grow can be carried out by anyone, and this can vastly improve the lives of local pollinators, which in turn improves the health of local plant life and the health of animals which may feed on those plants. So our message to you is simple. Care for life wherever you encounter it, not only the colorful, eye-catching life, but also the overlooked everyday life which surrounds us. By caring for the life around us, we are in fact caring for the entire world.
Okay, a few of us got together in 2017 and we started a group, a little ecological group, just to raise awareness of the beauty of Tramore and its ecological environment. In 2019, I saw a letter in the paper from Cormac O'Reilly from WIT suggesting bee corridors for the whole country, all councils getting involved. So then I had the idea that maybe we could start it from the town, and I would start it in my own garden because I had been becoming aware over the years of plants that did self-seed, and I was picking up babies from some of them, so I was already doing it. We have done reed seeds under the gardens of Katrina and Dennis, and we do those in the pots and then we put them down on the eco park because it is very important to attract the proper pollinators for that area rather than bring in new plants. We now have 4 residential areas where a local person has taken on the responsibility of making a wildlife area within their own confines, within their own little parks. Alicia is doing Pond Road, Pond Villas. Jerry did Sweetbriar or Roselawn, and I'm forgetting names now, Caroline and Sarah potentially. So the interest is building and we will improve. Everything is a plus anyway. No matter how little we seem to be doing, it's all adding to the overall encouragement of biodiversity in Ireland. It's been very encouraging this year to see some of our people from last year coming back because they realised that what I had given them was now actually in bloom again without any effort at all on their part. It's lovely to see children coming along, because some of the children take it really seriously, and they take the seeds of whatever plant they really want to do something with and to learn about. And even if we only get one child a month or one person a month to change their way of being and thinking of the ecology and thinking of the critters, and to stop using chemicals, for goodness sake. We started again this year, and the table is becoming increasingly successful. So the next pit stop for critters can be built at your house. Have a go. It's very easy.
The changing seasons bring new life to the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese gardens year after year. This metamorphosis begins in spring as cherry trees burst into a beautiful display of blossoms. Throughout the gardens, bulbs and flowering plants such as tulips, daffodils, magnolia, camellia, and azalea all begin their stunning displays. The local wildlife awakens from its winter hibernation, each setting about its own tasks for the months ahead. As we can see, every corner of the gardens is teeming with life, and each living thing plays its part in a much larger ecosystem. Sunshine gives energy to the plants through their large green leaves, a natural waterway quenches their thirst, and finally, the nutrients within the rich soil provide the plant life with all the nourishment needed to heal, grow, and thrive. These gardens are home to many birds, bats, and insects, and even to a few fairies. The summer season provides the fastest and strongest growth of life in the gardens. From the vivid seasonal colour in the Victorian garden to the charming miniature landscapes by the stream and ponds, we can see the variety of ways in which plants mature and thrive. The ponds attract hoverflies and dragonflies darting about their busy lives. Birdsong fills the air, and occasionally birds can be seen enjoying a bath as they make the most of the calm and peaceful space which is their home. Some of the world's oldest life forms, ferns, can be seen growing in the gardens alongside the modern-day plants and paths. These resilient plants have been living on Earth much longer than humans, and today they continue to thrive just as healthily as ever. The Azumaya, or Japanese summer pavilion, is the ideal spot to stop and reflect on all the life around you. The sound of the gently flowing water is at once both soothing and invigorating. In summer, the flowering American garden attracts a large number of bees and butterflies. These visitors are always welcome as they ensure the successful pollination of many plants. Be sure to treat them kindly wherever you may see them. If we are lucky, these insects will continue to visit us for years to come. Summer is a wonderful time to immerse yourself in the beauty of these natural surroundings. On a warm and sunny day, you can catch the smell of creeping rosemary as it travels along the breeze in the Greek garden, or sit and listen to the waterfall in the gardens of peace and harmony. As autumn approaches, the growth of plants slows down and the true structure of the gardens is revealed to us. The bees are nearing hibernation as the weather gets colder, the waterway begins to flow stronger, and we have more time to focus on the structures in the gardens, such as the exquisite Japanese ceremonial tea house. In the woodlands and elsewhere, the changing color of the leaves reminds us of the passage of time. It is important to cherish and mark these moments, as the gardens will continue to grow and evolve season upon season, never looking quite the same as your last visit. Here in the gardens, we often use autumn to dive into the readings of our namesake Lafcadio Hearn, who wrote famously about his love of Japanese gardens and of garden creatures, and indeed of all the life in the natural world.
Now, wasn't that wonderful? Thanks to Keith Guinan and Janet Carey and Anne Nolan and Afri Cronin from the Tremor Eco Group. And I'm delighted that Keith Guinan is with us now to talk to us about the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese garden. So you're very welcome, Keith, and thank you very much for putting that wonderful video together for us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much for having me on. And before we start, I'd just like to say thank you again to Tremor Eco Group. They provided a lot of the extra information for this year's video, but more so than that, they are the ground troops, so to speak, when it comes to looking out for biodiversity here at Tremor. They do so much for our town, and of course that has such a knock-on effect for the greater world as well. We're absolutely privileged to count them among some of our volunteers.
That's very apt, Keith, because it's one of the hallmarks of this festival is that it's partnership. It's joining up lots and lots of different people around the Southeast who are doing different things and often working away, doing great work locally. And once we join together, we can do wonderful things. And Tremor is definitely a case in point. I suppose Tremor is very well known around the country, but it's wonderful. You know, it has the great the dunes and the beach, and very important for birds and that. But it's great to see the local eco group form and join up with the Lafcadio Hearn Gardens. Just tell us a little bit about how did Tremor come to have the Japanese gardens?
Absolutely. So if we went back to about 10 years ago, there was a parkland in this very area in the center of town, and it had been used as a public park for a long time, but the grounds weren't suitable for a public park. Safety on some of the more steep slopes was always an issue, and you've also got rock and water throughout. So it was something of a loose end for a while, and it suffered neglect, unfortunately, like many places in Ireland. But it came about through a bit of chance, a bit of serendipity. In 2012, a gentleman named Bon Koizumi and his wife Shoko visited the town of Tremor. And as it turns out, Professor Koizumi, Bon, was descended from a man named Lafcadio Hearn, a half-Irish, half-Greek writer who made his name in America and finally settled in Japan. So for most people in Ireland, this was an unknown name, Lafcadio Hearn. We had no idea who he is or anything like that. But in Japan, his stories are on the school curriculum. So we realized that there was a glaring omission there in terms of a story to be told. And by pure coincidence, when the descendant of Lafcadio Hearn visited Tremor, they were brought to this parkland, as it was a green area with nice views, if a little run down at the time. But this story of Lafcadio Hearn, his journeys across the world, and the books he wrote, which are still selling well today, this was a story that needed to be told in Ireland, and Tremor was the ideal place for it. Although Hearn hadn't grown up in Tremor, Tremor would have been some of the happiest places of the happiest times of his entire childhood. So his descendants saw it as a necessary stop on the journey. And what better place to start a remarkable tribute to tell the story of this man? Although it is Japanese inspired, it does recreate and represent the different chapters of his life, including Greece, Ireland, and America. So there's plenty of local flavor here, as well as the exotic.
Yeah, you mentioned in the video there about the, Victorian and American parts of the garden and the Greek parts. It's wonderful that you were able to meld them all together. And does the Japanese garden format or tradition make that easy or more difficult?
I think it makes it easy. I've been working here for 5 years now, and in that time, I've obviously built up a greater interest in Japanese gardens, and I've been to Japan to see some of the gardens there. But what I learned is that each Japanese garden is different in the story it's trying to tell and what it represents, but it will often incorporate its locality rather than to be an exotic gem in the middle of local wildlife. It should incorporate what is in your locality. So, with us here in the gardens, we were very privileged to have a woodlands that extends beyond the gardens here and into the gardens as well. Something of a local landmark, and people of many generations have told me their stories of visiting these woodlands in the past. So it's really about trying to stick to Japanese sensibilities wherever you can, but never shying away from what is in your area. One of the messages I wanted to get across in the video this year was that life that you're trying to protect may not be striking and eye-catching. As you mentioned, the focus has very much gone from the giant panda and the tiger and things like this. We have to look more closely at those things we see every day, grasses and ferns, and a particular favorite of mine in the gardens, hoverflies. I'm absolutely captivated by these little guys. Bees or butterflies, fantastic, but give me hoverflies any day of the week.
I absolutely agree with you. Hoverflies are my favorite. They're just incredible creatures, and they're very clever in mimicking wasps to scare you away.
Absolutely.
No, and I think that is an important point, that, we have biodiversity on our doorstep wherever we are, and we need to appreciate that. There's wonderful things in other parts of the world, and, if you're lucky, you get to see them, but we have just wonderful things on our doorstep. And I really would love everyone to visit the Lafcadio Hearn Gardens. It's just such a beautiful place, and you do need support. And one of the things, you're a very young enterprise, and unfortunately, just as your fame was growing and you were getting a lot of attention, that you had to close because of COVID. And so when the restrictions lifted and people get out and about, make sure you go and support the wonderful places we'll be showcasing in the festival. People, just to ask you to, if you want to place comments or questions in the chat, and if you like, we can have you on mute and ask questions directly to Keith. I see here a comment from Margaret, who lived in Japan and first came across Lafcadio Hearn there. When people learnt I was Irish, they would often mention him. Visiting the gardens of Tramore brings back many happy memories. A great place to visit in the different seasons, and recommends an annual ticket. So we would endorse that. I think one of the things I've noticed about Japanese gardens is there's a sense of stillness.
Absolutely, yeah. Even today, we've had people come in simply to meditate in the gardens. So it was fantastic. And what's amazing is they'll come up to the desk and they'll say, "Is it okay if we meditate in here?" I can think of no better use for the gardens than getting in and improve your mental health. All you can hear then is the sound of the water and the birds. The only problem is it will close eventually. But apart from that, you could stay all day if you wanted. And I don't mind staying late in the gardens today. You can probably tell.
So what's you did mention the importance of the seasons, and I think that's a feature in Japan. They like to to look at the seasons, and the blossoms are very important to them. What's happening in the gardens at the moment?
So what's in bloom at the moment are the beautiful Azalea japonica. You might be able to see it on my camera there, although it's a little bit far away. We've just reached the end of our cherry blossom season, which is a striking but very short-lived time in the gardens. We're looking forward to the summer now as scents are beginning to come out. We're getting different smells and scents from the Greek garden, from the Victorian garden. It is leaning into the heaviest period of growth in the gardens. If you're looking for a bit of color, the irises are the very next flashy appearance in the gardens. And with Japanese gardens, you would often use your color sparingly, using it in certain sections of the gardens rather than a splashy show of color throughout. Of course, both have their positives, but in Japanese, it would be more leaning towards greenery and textures as well, which all have value.
Great. So anyone with questions, please let us know, or if you want to make any comments, if you've been to the gardens and you want to share your experience, please join in. We're really trying to recreate the normal sense of this festival, where we would be there with Keith on site, and he would have given us a tour, and now we'd all be chatting and asking him questions. So please, please do let us hear your questions if you have them. Now, so that's what people can enjoy if they visit the gardens now and in the next few weeks. In terms of Japanese visitors, do you have, is it on their schedule when they come to Ireland?
Oh yeah,
a destination for them?
It's certainly picking up, and I don't normally tell this story, but my wife is Japanese. I met her here in the gardens. So, but we do have more Japanese visitors percentage-wise than a lot of places, I imagine. While we haven't yet had busloads coming from Japan, particularly to see us, Japanese visiting would be likely to do a tour of the country and would take in a whole region like Munster, for example, on their visit. Now, what we do find is if Japanese people are in Ireland for some reason, they will usually travel hours out of their way to come visit us, not because it's a Japanese gardens, but because of the connection to Lafcadio Hearn. It can't be overstated how important he is to Japanese culture. He was a pivotal part in preserving their folk tales and their culture. Around 1900 was his peak, but this was a time when the Japanese themselves didn't exactly engage in permanence of any kind. They would build things which would be deconstructed. They would write things which would fade away. There would be oral history. But in the West, we like things to be permanent. So although Hearn was writing in English when he was in Japan, after he passed away, the Japanese accepted him into their culture. They realized that this Westerner had preserved something of their past and their culture within his words. So we would always love more Japanese visitors. I mean, last year, when everything was cancelled and air flight, of course, it took all our international visitors away. But personally, I'd like to focus on the positive that comes out of the past year, which is with the cancellation of so much air travel, the environment has had a big chance to bounce back for a while. And hopefully we'll see some of the positive effects of that, and we'll all be a little bit wiser as we go back out into the world.
Great. Anne Mar Walsh wants to know something more about Lafcadio's family connection with Tramore. What is the connection with Tramore?
So how it started was he was the child of an Irishman and a Greek woman. But when they moved to Ireland in the 1850s, His Greek mum had to move back to Greece without him. Now, there's different accounts on whether that was on purpose or whether she was denied access to her little boy. But the result is she never saw him after 4 years old, and he was left in Ireland. Lafcadio's father was a military man in the British Army, and he wasn't around during the boy's childhood much at all. So Sarah Brennan, the boy's grandaunt, ended up being the sole provider and guardian for young Patrick Lafcadio Hearn growing up. Mrs. Brennan spent a long time in Tramore. She had a holiday villa here. She would visit friends in the town of Tramore. And she spent so much time in Tramore that she was eventually buried here in Holy Cross Cemetery just up the road. But on one of those summers in Tramore in 1857, down there on Tramore Beach, little boy Patrick was 7 years old when his father came to visit him. And this would be the last time that Patrick saw his father. So Patrick's parents were gone from 7 years old. He was raised by Sarah Brennan, who spent a lot of her time in Tramore and is now buried here. When the boy was 19 years old, the means to look after him, the funds, the family money, was all after disappearing. So he was sent to America without a penny, with very little forward planning, and was very soon homeless in New York. So his family ties were gone by the time he was 20 years old. He had relatives that he would correspond with, but I don't think he ever saw another relative in person after he was 19 years old, until the birth of his first child many years later.
Wow. So Tramore, it's not just he went on holidays to Tramore. There was a genuine emotional connection with Tramore.
Yes. Yeah, and it's very difficult because to say he was a citizen of Tramore wouldn't really be true, but it's very difficult to pin him down as a citizen of anywhere apart from Japan. His time in Ireland was not the happiest. So he was living in Dublin with his family. His mother had gone back to Greece, and he now felt that he was an outsider. He looked foreign, he looked different, and he felt very much like an outsider throughout his childhood. And the reason that Tramore ended up being such an important, integral part of his story was because it was one of the few fleeting moments in his childhood where he found happiness. He was not the happiest gentleman through a lot of his life. His life was punctuated by happiness near the beginning, his days in Greece, Tramore, and near the end, when he was watching his own children swimming in the bays of Yaizu, Japan. He was thrown back to his own days in Tramore and the Guillemine Cove and things like that. So his family, his descendants, saw Tramore as an absolutely necessary stop on the journey of Lafcadio Hearn, because, as I say, he wasn't much happy during the first half of his life, but one of those places where he did find happiness was here in Tramore. One of his biographers, Vera McWilliams, wrote that his days by the sea were the happiest, and his Tramore days, the happiest of his youth. So we take that to heart, and we hope that, in essence, his memory, his spirit has returned, and that when he found rest in Japan after a hard life, that he would be remembered in a fitting tribute. And really, these gardens are just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to it, and there's more and more books being written about him, fact and fiction, and somewhere in the middle. I've just finished a book that has just been released in the last month or so by Jean Paisley called Black Dragonfly. I believe it's on sale in bookshops now already. It's somewhat fictional account of Lafcadio Hearn's life, but I will say after reading it, it's very, very factually accurate. There's a few creative liberties taken, but I would highly recommend it as an introduction for someone who didn't know the story of Patrick Lafcadio Hearn. Black Dragonfly is the name of it.
Okay, well, we'll certainly look out for that, and we might post a note on it on our website. He spent quite an amount of time in the US. Is he remembered there at all?
He is, but not in the same way he would be in Greece or Ireland or Japan. So he was based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and later in New Orleans, Louisiana. And if you go to the bookshops in these areas, the universities, the libraries, you will find people who would be enamored with Hearn's life and would be eager to talk about him. But in terms of being known to the greater public, not so much. He did fantastic journalistic work in America. There's a book of his called, I think it's Creating New Orleans, and it dives into, he almost gave New Orleans some of the character we know it for now, or at least he shared that with the wider world. He wrote a Creole cookbook of recipes he had gathered while living there. And yeah, as I say, certain experts and academics would know about him in the areas he lived in. But in terms of the wider public, not very well known in America. Japan, he is absolutely famous there still, because every time a Japanese person visits these gardens, I check and I ask, have you heard of this man? And they always say something to the tune of course, rather than yes or no. Whereas in Ireland, I ask everyone, have you heard of him? And I'm taken aback when someone says yes. So I'm always prepared to tell the story when someone walks in.
Great, and you tell it very well, Keith. And we're delighted to help you try and promote the life and legacy of Lafcadio Hearn, and the gardens are doing a wonderful job in that. There's a question here from Margaret is inquiring, do you ever do tea ceremonies?
We will be doing tea ceremonies. So we built, not me, I wish. We built a Japanese ceremonial tea house here in the gardens. It is ornate. People don't go in and out of it on a daily basis. You come along and you admire it from the outside. On the off chance that you're invited in on a special occasion, you take off your shoes, of course, and everything like this. And we are going to be having tea ceremonies in the future. We did have one to open the tea house. It's not something we can throw together given a day's notice, but for those very special occasions, for that event where you need something absolutely unique and out of this world, we will be organizing the tea ceremonies so you could experience a bit of genuine Japanese hospitality here in the gardens.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. Kaylee is asking, having worked in the gardens for many years, what's your favorite thing about the gardens? You're sick of them by now, I'm sure. Yeah, it really comes across.
Absolutely not. So I could live in these gardens, to be honest. For me, it's the waterway. The waterway is a natural stream, a natural spring here. So we were quite lucky that came with the land when the gardens were being built. But there's a stream, and then there is a place of peace. This is a beautiful area marked by the Koizumi stone rock formation at the top. It is the first place where I felt I was no longer in Tremor. I remember getting the job here and being taken on a guided tour of the gardens. And when I reached the natural spring, the Koizumi stones, which is now by the tea house, I felt like I was out of Tremor, like somehow we had been transported miles out of the town and we were somewhere else. And I had to remind myself that I was in Tremor because I live 5 minutes away and I had no idea what was right on my doorstep. And frankly, I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't discover it before I got the opportunity to work here. I was very fortunate to get a place on the community employment scheme, as a lot of our workers are. And then through Pobble, I was able to get a full-time job here. And it's still something that needs to be renewed time after time, but it is a beautiful place to be coming in here 5 or 6 times a week. It's absolutely magnificent. And I have a lot of favorite areas. If you've ever taken the tour with me, you'll hear me say that a lot of times on the way around. This is one of my favorite areas, but I promise you each time I am telling the truth. I just have a lot of them.
And the Koizumi stones, that was the name that Lafcadio took as his Japanese name.
That's
Is that correct?
That's correct. So in his later years, he realized that should anything happen to him, if he were to pass away, his children and his family, the little world that was gathering around him, would not be set up because he was a foreigner, albeit receiving a higher wage because he was not Japanese. But he decided to become a naturalized Japanese citizen, and I'm sure that's easier said than done. But he took the name Koizumi, which is his wife's name, and he took the name Yakumo as a first name. So Koizumi Yakumo, the Japanese reverse the first and the second name, is how they know him. But the word Koizumi, the family name, literally translates as little spring. So here in our natural spring in the gardens, what better place to put the Koizumi rock formation? And if you go and see the top of our stream here, you'll see a tall, proud stone representing Patrick Lafcadio Hearn, Koizumi Yakumo, at his proudest, most successful time in life. And then just next to him, supporting him, is a stone representing his wife, Setsu Koizumi, a wonderfully cultured woman of samurai descent who kept him in line during his last years in Japan. And then you'll see a protection stone wrapped around the stones representing his family. And I always think then of the stones all down the stream as representing his descendants down to present day and even into the future.
Wonderful, wonderful picture you paint there, Keith. And again, you know, to be able to take advantage of the natural spring there and make it into, I mean, the gardens really revolve around the water. There's also the Zen garden. In a way, the stones kind of resemble a pond or water. What's the story with Zen gardens?
So my wife told me this fact, so I didn't research it myself, but the idea behind the raked gravel in Zen gardens is that these were often created in places that were afflicted by drought or that were far away from sources of water. So when you are raking it into the shapes of waves or tides, it's like you're beckoning the water to arrive. We don't need much of that beckoning here lately, but there have been heat waves in the previous few years. So yeah, it's good to keep that tradition alive. Now here in Japan, we get, or here in the Japanese gardens, we get a lot of little footprints in our Zen garden, which you wouldn't get in Japan. But at the same time, we know that comes with the territory. If people are coming to visit our lovely gardens here, we'll take things like that. That's fine. We'll rake it again when they're done.
Very good. If there's any questions, please either drop them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute and ask Keith yourselves. Let me see. Mary O'Riordan says she loves your description of the stones and what they represent, and she can almost imagine the scene. And hopefully, Mary, it won't be long before you can go and visit and see the scene. Now, Sheila also reminds me of the wonderful work the Tramore Eco Group do, and joining together, I suppose, Afra mentioned the idea of the bee corridors, and you mentioned yourself the importance of the different pollinators. And to be able to join up, the gardens must be a great reserve for pollinators to connect in. And of course, there's a lot of gardens in Tramore, so there must be throughout Tramore great little biodiversity habitats.
Yes, I've noticed this myself. Sorry, my battery just dipped below 10%, but I should be okay for another 10 or 20 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
When I first started here, I went to a talk in the Coast Guard Cultural Centre by Dr. Una Fitzpatrick on biodiversity. And there was a few key lessons there that I took away from it. The idea of letting grass grow. So simple, and it was counterintuitive to us for a long time. But when you see these areas, these strips of grass that are now erupting in wild flowers, and you're thinking, why have we not done this all along? We might have been a little bit obsessed with short, neat grass, but when life returns, it's not only beautiful, it's useful and it's helpful to the future and everything. But the community in Tramore, and particularly Tramore Eco Group, have done incredible work. They never seem to stop propagating local seeds, getting bird boxes, bat boxes, insect and bug hotels around the place. Every little effort, and it's just going to blossom in the future, forgive the pun.
Well, you mentioned Una Fitzpatrick, and we're delighted that Una will be with us on the 20th. That's Bee Day, International Day for Bees and Pollinators. And I'll ask maybe Kaylee will join us and tell us about what else is coming up in the festival. So just, and if anyone has more questions for Keith, please, there's plenty of time to ask them. Kaylee, how are you?
Hi, Harriet. Thanks very much for a fabulous talk, Keith. You paint a beautiful picture with your words, I have to say. You're very, very poetic and definitely do Lafcadio a lot of justice. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
So Kaylee is the coordinator of the festival this year. And maybe Kaylee, you tell us what's coming in every evening, and then maybe a little bit about what what's to do during the days.
Okay, so today, as you all know, is the start of our Bealtaine Living Earth Festival, and this is the very first Living Earth TV show of 2020. But as Owen mentioned, there is a jam-packed schedule going to happen every day. At 5:30 daily, we are going to have talks from people all over the southeast of Ireland, and we're going to look at things from plants to pollinators, wellness to water, and birds to bees. So tomorrow we're going to be talking with Dr. Mark Rowe, and he's going to really talk about the importance of wellness in nature, and it kind of links back in with what Keith was saying, that you can use nature as a meditative space, be it walking or simply listening to the world around you. That ties in also nicely with our talk on Monday by Eric Dempsey. He's going to talk about some of the beautiful sounds we've been listening to with the summer birds, the different things and birds we're going to see in our gardens, and different migratory patterns as well. On Tuesday, we are going to be joined with the JFK Arboretum. They'll talk about all the beautiful blossoms and flowers and plants. And then again, as Keith had said previously, just linking back with the pollinators and things we can do to bring, I suppose, more biodiversity back into our own space as well. On Wednesday, we're going to be hearing from Robbie in the Copper Coast. So we're going to have not only land, but sea as well. They'll talk about a lot of the conservation work they have done for the Copper Coast and how we can join in that conservation effort as well. I know they're developing an app quite soon that's going to be launched very, very shortly, so quite interesting as well. As Owen mentioned, we're going to be hearing on Thursday from Dr. Una Fitzpatrick, who is one of the leads when it comes to the National Pollinator Plan. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen in your own local communities, there has no mow zones have been developed, which I say I am a great fan of. No Mow May is running currently, and it's great to, you know, leave the garden run for a bit longer just to promote biodiversity. So big fan there. On Friday, we're going to be hearing from local man Brian White in Carriganshore, and he's going to talk about the Blue Way that is being developed along the river shore. That is called At the Head of the Tide. And then on Saturday, we're going to be really looking at what we can do for biodiversity and conservation in ourselves. So we're going to be hearing from Yvonne Grace, which is a horticulture lecturer in WIT. So that is our evening schedule every day at 5:30. You can catch it on Bealtaine Living Earth TV. And then don't worry if you miss it. The videos will be up for a good long while, actually, after every show. So if you miss it, not to worry at all. One of the things that was mentioned in the video about the Lafcadio Gardens as well is that it's really simple to do some activities in your own life or your garden or your home to promote biodiversity. So we have a big range of resources and activities on our website, which are super simple, and you can be doing those throughout the day. You can, if you have time, to build a little bee hotel, learn about how to nurture different kind of spaces and areas for not only bees, but insects and butterflies as well. So, you know, bees are all important, but our insects are important too. And then one thing I have to mention, and it's something that we can all get involved in, is we are going to be running competitions all throughout the week on our social media and as part of Living Earth TV. And we have a huge range of prizes for those competitions as well, including 2 passes to the Lafcadio Hearn Gardens and 3 family passes to the Copper Coast Geo Park as well. So there's loads of things for you to do over the next couple of days and during the day and the evening. So we're really looking forward to having you join us. And thank you very much, guys.
Great, thank you very much, Kaylee. Just to remind you of some of those items. You can see everything or find everything on our website, livingearth.ie. And you can follow us on Twitter at CalMastWIT and Facebook at Bealtaine Biodiversity. So our events, our program events are on the website. You can see them there, and we will, if you don't catch us on Zoom, you can see the broadcast every evening live streamed from the website. So if you don't get the Zoom link or if you haven't booked, you can always go onto the website and see us directly there. We can I just have to show you the pictures. Where are we? Here we go. We have guides on our website as well, and they will be they're very useful for you in exploring the biodiversity on your doorstep. We will have events for all ages. And loads of family activities, so you can go and look at things to do as a family, and particularly things to do with young people. There's loads of great activities on the website as well. Tomorrow, we're going to have Dr. Mark Rowe, who is very well known nationally and internationally for his talks and his books on wellness, and he is a strong believer of finding wellness in nature. And I mean, something that I suppose when we stop and think about it, we all know in our hearts that nature is so important for wellness, and that has been really emphasized in the last year. So his talk tomorrow at 5:30 right here. And we hope to see you all there, and tell your friends about it and come along and we can celebrate together our living earth. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, the CalMAS team, and thank you, the listeners, for joining us here. See you tomorrow.
Take care.